I've been putting off this video for as long as I can. And this is not easy, but EDM Weekly, the podcast, has come to an end. The EDM Weekly podcast is over, and it's not something that I've gotten used to. It's not something that I'd like to get used to. This has been so abrupt and so hard, to say the least, but it's over. It's over. There's nothing I can really do about it at this point. So let's get into why. So the podcast was pulled from Apple Podcasts on Friday, October 16th. Now, despite it being pulled, I still have data that the podcast is still on Apple Podcast charts around the world, like ranking, even top 5 in some countries. But I can't find it in Canada. And for me not to be able to listen to my own show is difficult. And this year, 2020 in itself has made podcasting, or this style of podcast, a DJ mix music podcast, music commentary podcast, very difficult to succeed. The show was launched on Spotify early this year. I would say probably January, February. And then it was pulled from Spotify in April or May, as they pulled all music podcasts except for those big artists. Armin van Buuren in a State of Trance, that type of large podcast or radio show. So that happened in April or May. And then in June or July, Spreaker, my hosting company, started taking down past episodes of the podcast. I believe 2 or 3 were just deleted without any notice. They didn't give a statement other than it was due to copyright. Fast forward to this past week, there was a complaint in the last 2 weeks made to Apple Podcasts about the show from a organization that represents the music industry. And I responded to them. I sent them an email within 24 hours saying, is there anything I can do to rectify the situation or work with you in some capacity? There was no instructions given. There's only a single link to their website on podcasting, and their stance on podcasts or music podcasts or using music in podcasts, and that was it. And within the next 5 to 10 minutes or maybe an hour later, the show was pulled from Apple Podcasts. And that was the start to my weekend. So with Spotify gone, Apple Podcasts gone, it really doesn't give me any other choice but to end the show. When you get rid of, that was really Canadian. When you get rid of someone's audience, how do you, it's no longer sustainable, it's no longer feasible to continue the show in what it was. And it sucks a lot. It was 7 years, started in February 2013, and I'm going to save a recap video or just this journey video for Wednesday. I think I'm going to upload 2 videos on Wednesday. After not really uploading to my channel, I'm going to do it twice. So, why do I think my show or I was targeted? I believe it's just honestly, it's because the music industry and live entertainment's in rough shape. The pandemic has canceled and cost companies billions of dollars in lost revenue. It's artists are starving, and it's just hard to have a music career without touring. And I understand that, and I get that. And I believe these associations and companies are just trying to make their artists happy. Sorry, the video cut out. So I think they're just trying to make them happy and financially prosperous during a time where there's so much uncertainty with live events and just kind of their career for the next couple of years, as it's not what it used to be, especially with festivals, events, club shows, and everything regarding just the electronic dance music world. It hurts to be an independent creator brand that has done so much work to promote artists, work with artists, from small artists to large artists, and then get canceled like this, or effectively silenced. I'm upset, but I understand. And that's probably the most what? Sorry, someone was going off in the streets. Obviously, I'm upset. I didn't want the show to end. I feel like EDM Weekly really just hit its stride in the last couple years with my mixing abilities, with the caliber of guests we had on. Origin Nielsen and Chami were the last ones to do guest mixes for the show. Had a couple more lined up, and those will no longer get released, which is tough as well, because they were really good ones. Is this the end? I hope not. No. I don't want this to be the end. And what does the end mean? Or is this the end to what? EDM Weekly, the podcast, effectively has come to an end in this era, in this version of it that you've known for the last 7 years. EDM Weekly online will continue through my videos and my channels. So Garrett Gaudet on Instagram, at Garrett Gaudet, and youtube.com/Garrett Gaudet, where you're probably watching this now. If you're not watching this on IGTV, there will still be dance music content on YouTube for sure, and Instagram, as it's very much a part of my life. I will continue to DJ, hopefully do a live mix once a month. We're going to start with once a month and see if that's sustainable. I've done an episode every week for 310 weeks, which is just under 6 years. We just missed the 6-year mark, which would have come in November, but we're short of that 6-year milestone as far as consecutive weeks goes. But 360 episodes. I need a break. I do need a break. And there's a part of me that was kind of relieved to get a break, get an opportunity to take a week off, because it's just me. There's no one else here. I record, produce, and then do the voiceover for the podcast every week, upload them here. And yeah, it's exhausting. There's a lot of long nights, painful days, weekends, days that I just simply didn't want to do the show, weeks I didn't want to. But I did. I did because I loved it, and now that's not something I have to think about, which is also kind of difficult. After planning your life for 5 years, 7 years, around a podcast and show that you've done for every week, I've never done anything that consistent, ever. I don't know if I will again, but this is the reality of it. On this channel, you can expect electronic dance music content. Now, what does that mean? Like I said, live mixes, but I also want to do really fun and interesting videos on specific topics, like, I don't have any examples. I had examples in my phone that I'm recording on. I want to do videos on artists. I want to do videos on special events that's happened in dance music. Here's a couple. The life of Avicii, the story of Avicii, how psytrance became mainstream, the rise of Vinny Vici, Tiesto, the career and the sound, Armin van Buuren, the man versus the brand. There's so many topics that I want to get into, and I think now that I have the creative time to do more projects like this, that's what you can kind of expect. This year, I think there will be an October mix. I want there to be this dark, Halloween-ish kind of mix for the month of October. There will be this video, another video, and then whatever I decide to put on this channel. I want to do a mix of dance music content, stuff that I'm interested in, business stuff, that kind of thing. Will EDM Weekly return? If the opportunity presents itself, yes, simply yes. If someone wants to sign me on and produce or add me to a network of shows, or working with an FM radio station, internet radio, record label, artist, I'll do your show for you. I will. I love what I did, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. It's done so much for my career, for me personally. I just love it. I do. It's why someone would do it for 360 episodes or 7 years. You don't do that unless you love it. And I loved it. Which is going to be tough to walk away from. This whole abrupt end has been tough to accept. Obviously, with the year that's been, with everything getting taken down and being pulled from major platforms, it's not like I couldn't see the writing was on the wall, figuratively. But it's still not easy to kind of come to terms with. It feels like it's been a funeral. The last mix I did, and I invite you to check it out on edmweekly.com if you can't find it anywhere else, is a nostalgic mix. I want to end the show with a lot of emotion. Episode 360 was mixed and kind of curated and dedicated to the emotions that I wanted to bring to the show every week. I think electronic music is so unique in that it's so diverse with emotions, feelings, sounds. And I think that's how I ended the podcast, is with a 30-minute mix that had a lot of progressive, nostalgic feelings. On the last episode, I feel like it was really emotional, with a lot of progressive and tracks that really inspired me as a podcaster and really gave me a lot of motivation, and from a lot of my idols that I saw live. Like on the last show, I played Swedish House Mafia, Sebastian Grasso, Knife Party, and so many others. And I ended the show with, I guess, a somber tone, just because that's what I'm feeling. And a lot of the episodes that I did mix and I did create were based on genuine feelings that I was feeling at the time. I think this year in its own has been its own case study of how I've been feeling. And it's been a very turbulent year, because this year did not go to any of my plans. If you want to refer to the other videos on my channel of what I had planned for this year, for content personally and career. But that's just the year that it's been, and that's fine. But losing this is tough. But yeah, EDM Weekly podcast, EDM Weekly with Garrett Gaudet, is over after 7 years. I will continue to bring DJ mixes and mix episodes, compilations, and maybe I'll get into Spotify playlists, because you can't get in trouble making playlists on Spotify, can you? So maybe I'll try that. This will not be the end, Please consider subscribing to this channel if you made it this far already. I know if you made it this far, you are invested in the show or are just trying to figure out what's happened with the show. And what hurts me a lot and probably the most is 75% of my audience and listeners were on Apple Podcasts. And a lot of the listeners will not be able to hear why the show ended, why they search for the show when it just no longer appears. Yeah, that's tough. So I say goodbye or farewell on my final episode in hopes that they will find that episode, but there's no guarantees. But hopefully you found this video and it's provided some sort of explanation and some clarity, because especially if you've listened for the last 7 years, I owe you at least that. And that not being able to use the platform and use the podcast the way I always intended it to be is also upsetting. I ideally would want to do this last run for the end of 2020, where the month of December is the best of the year with the year mix, and there's some more fun episodes, like 90s Takeover Volume 2 was going to come out at some point, but that won't happen. Brian, Philly Dad on Run, if you're watching it, thank you so much. You've been a huge supporter of the podcast, and I really appreciate that. You were one of the people that I thought of right away when I knew I had to stop the show, as you've showed me so much support by posting on Instagram, tagging me on Instagram, and just showing just so much love to the show. And that's the emotional response I've always wanted from people when creating a show like this, and that's really what's fueled the show over the last few years when it's been difficult to create a show. So thank you to everyone who's listened, and I appreciate every one of you that have ever listened to an episode. This is not easy. This will take some time to get over, as it does feel like a death. And I think I'm rambling at this point, but please consider subscribing to this channel and following me on Instagram if you'd like to stay connected and maintain this relationship that we've had over the last couple of years, or however long you've listened for. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode. It's not a line that I'll say again, but thank you for watching. This may be the new outro, and I'll see you soon.